or something?
Or the Q.
I'll call to order the March 14th meeting of the Park Commission tonight. If you could please silence your phones if you haven't already done that, we'd appreciate that. Agenda 2 is roll call. Commissioner Stevens?
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes, I'm here.
Vice Commissioner Van Antwerp? Here. Commissioner Lick?
Here.
And I'm Commissioner Ferris. So we're all here, and Director Maisner and our Administrative Assistant Bridget Cannon. Is there any other staff?
That's it.
Okay. So does anyone have any changes to the agenda for tonight's meeting? With that, I'll look for a motion.
Moved.
Mike, second. Amanda? Vote. Everybody in favor say yay.
Yay.
Hey,
Opposed, nay. Okay, the agenda's approved. We have 2 places for public comment. So this is our first spot. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak now? Okay. And then we'll move on to presentations. Our first presentation is on Barn of the Year Barn of the Year Award with Brad. Luann, did you want to do any preface before we?
Well, Brad Brogren is the president of Friends of Historic Meridian, who is our nonprofit organization who operates the Meridian Historical Village. And Brad and the organization had applied or submitted an application to the Barn Preservation Group. And I'm going to take it here because I don't want to steal Brad's thunder. But we did win an award.
Thank you.
That's around first. First, I'd like to show the commissioners the award that we're on. And also some membership applications. If you're not a member of the Friends of Historic Meridian, by all means join. I know some of you are.
Very nice.
Every year, the Michigan Barn Preservation Network solicits applications for their Barn of the Year awards. And I thought it's about time that we got some recognition here in Meridian Township. So this year I submitted the application early on in the year, realizing the Unruh Barn in the village is not unique in its structure by any means. There's plenty of barns around that are nicer than that, and there's a lot of them that are disrepair. The thing I pointed out in the application was the uniqueness of the barn to the community and the school children that we serve, and the pioneer living lessons we teach within the barn. I included a number of photographs for the selection committee, and I was pleased that they recognized us for our educational opportunities. And I went to the conference a week and a half ago. I invited Luann. Circumstances were such with a snowstorm. The ball game over in parking was tough at the Kellogg Center, and our agenda was kind of screwed up. She did not make it. But I was thrilled that Deborah Guthrie was in the audience. And Deborah is a recent member of the Michigan Barn Preservation Network, and little did I know of her love for barns. So I called her up to accept this on the part of the township. Now, notice the award goes to the Meridian Charter Township. It goes to the barn owner. I was the applicant on behalf of the Friends of Historic Meridian. So we intend to present it, Deborah and I, to the township board next week, and hopefully it'll find an appropriate place to hang, maybe in the town hall room here. I would hope so. But barn preservation, I've been involved in the network since my wife and I purchased the Cornell family farm on Cornell Road, and back in 1993. We had a barn. I always wanted a barn. I've been subdivision people. We've lived in Meridian Township for 50 years. Subdivisions in Hazlet, our kids went to Hazlet schools. So this was a chance to have a few acres. I was left after they subdivided the farm, and I got involved with the network. Bruce is here, I see. He was a beekeeper that came onto our farm, and raised bees and helped us when we were farming organic vegetables. But back to this barn. It's kind of strange, at the same time we were getting this award, there's a building assessment report out now showing the deficiencies in that barn and the other buildings over. And I don't know if Luann's had a chance to share that with Parks Commission yet, but we're anxious to sit down and go over our plan of attack to get these items addressed. It's a lot of money involved. I'm not sure where we're going to get it, but we're going to work in that regard. The barn itself needs a new roof, needs some cosmetic improvements. A lot of the boards are rotted out, the doors need work. But the structure, since it was built in the 1870s, over 150 years old, the structure itself is still firm. It's timber frame. Hopefully you've all been in that barn and you notice the Morrison tendon joints, how it's put together, peg joints. We point that out to the children. The timbers would have been cut at the Unruh Farm on Marsh Road, north of Tyhard, south of Tyhard, I mean. And we point all that out when we do tour the farm. So I'm here tonight to let it all be known that we have a treasure in our community. And since that village first came about 50 years ago, mind you, and you go back and read history, the township officials were on board with starting to move buildings into the park 50 years ago. The first building that was moved was actually the toll gate house that Luann, I understand, was moved to Launch Park temporarily. And then due to flooding conditions, they knew it had to be moved out of there. But the first building to come over was a Grettenberger farmhouse. And that was located where the Pilgrim House is now. That was a Grettenberger farm on the Meyer property. And to complete the farmstead, the barn was moved from across Marsh Road in 1991 in its entirety, jacked up, put on a flatbed truck, pulled over here and put on a new foundation. So I encourage you, if you're not already, to join our Friends of Historic Meridian. We've had a couple difficult years with the pandemic, and I think it's appropriate you know about that. Our major source of revenue, besides donations, are the school classes that come through. And we have upwards of 3,000 children a year coming through the village, learning pioneer skills at different buildings. And it's always a joy, second, third graders typically, to be with those kids. So we're hoping that gets back to normal. We get the flow of children through, we get the improvements done to the village, and it can be good for another 50 years, but we'll all see. So does anybody have any questions for me?
That sign right there, you're going to.
Oh, that sign, yeah. I was going to jokingly ask if anybody had room in their office for that, but we talked about that at our own board meeting last week. It's meant to be put on the barn. We don't want it to really distract from the uniqueness or the picturesque community there. But my thought is we'll mount it in the corner of the barn, at least for this year. If it doesn't look right, we'll take it down and put it somewhere else, but eventually it will go inside the barn. So thanks for pointing that out, Luann.
Yeah.
So I suspect I'll be back here with you sometime talking about our building assessments and begging for money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So glad Commissioner Guthrie could be there. Just what a happenstance that she.
Yeah, it worked out great. And Brad, thank you so much for submitting that application. You know, whenever the Meridian Township and our facilities can be recognized, it's always a wonderful thing for our community. And Park Commission puts a lot of effort into the entire park system, and so some recognition is really great. And yeah, so thank you for doing that. That was really outstanding.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight, too. I know it was an extra, but we really appreciate the presentation.
Glad to be here.
Can we call you Barney from now on? Can we call you Barney from now on? Okay.
Okay, our next presentation is on green burials. Luann, again, did you have any preface that you wanted to share?
You know, the Environmental Commission, that's how I had first heard about this, and there's been some presentations, and I sat in on a green team meeting a little while ago, and I think Bruce may have gone to land preservation a week or two ago, and then now he's coming here to talk about the concept of green burials.
Okay.
Right. I'm not affiliated with the Environmental Commission. I'm part of the Green Neighbors Network, and I chair the newly formed Green Burial Committee that's was formed by the Green Dialogue group that Leroy Ivory oversees on Wednesday mornings. It's a Zoom meeting. In late January, the League of Women Voters had a great presentation at Haslett High School, put on by Gabrielle Meyer. And it's on the Township YouTube channel. If you just Google Green Burials Meridian YouTube, it'll pop up. There'll be a lot more information in her presentation that I'm going to go over tonight. But the downshot of it was that we expected a few people to go to that, and it turned out that there were over 100 people that showed up for that. And it was also broadcast on Zoom as well, so I don't know how many people came in on Zoom. So it's apparent that within the township, there's a lot of interest in natural burial options. So I'm here tonight to get people to start thinking about the green burials. There's 3 different types of green burials. There's the hybrid, which is a portion of a conventional cemetery is set aside for green burial. There's the natural, which is a natural area is devoted to, or part of a natural area is devoted to green burials. And then there's a conservation green burial site where the site is actually partnered with a nature reserve type of an organization. So it is, the conservation part is the primary goal of the green burial, and the actual internments are sort of secondary to that. In order to qualify to be a green burial, there's no embalming. There's no liners or concrete vaults that are used, and no non-biodegradable containers. Usually it's a linen or cotton shroud that the body is placed in, or you could have a wicker coffin or unfinished wood coffin. And the body is interred about 3 to 4 feet down. So in most places, the digging is hand dug, and a lot of times the family takes part in that type of thing. In order to get one going in the township, we have Green Lawn Cemetery is the only cemetery within the township right now that is offering new plots. And according to township regulations, vaults are required for that. And all the available plots are interspersed with conventional grave sites. So it really doesn't lend itself well in 6 of the 7, 6 of the 7 sections of that cemetery. Section 7, however, off in the, it would be the northwest corner of Green Lawn, is actually an open spot, and it would lend itself well to a green burial site if we wanted to go that route. But we would have to change township regulations in order to eliminate the need for caskets or the concrete vaults in that spot. As far as other options, the closest option available to the township would be Williamstown Township. They are in the process of getting a green burial area as part of their Summit Cemetery. on Beaman Road. And that will be available probably this summer for accepting sale of plots. And as I said, I just wanted to get people thinking about it and get a conversation going within the township. I know I've since learned that Green Lawn, the maintenance of the cemetery and also the digging of the graves themselves is taken, the responsibility is the park and rec, as I
Yeah,
understand.
it used to be, but it no longer is with the Parks and Recreation Department. It's with DPW.
Okay, all right. So one of I presented last week to the Land Preservation Advisory Board, and they suggested I come and talk to you folks. One of the things that they mentioned was they were concerned about how the green burial site would be taken care of. And those kinds of things need to be worked out, I guess. Initially, when I first looked at Green Lawn, didn't consider that at all because of the concrete vault portion of it. And I was thinking that we could either purchase additional property within the township as part of the preserve program, or utilize a park or preserve, a portion of a park or preserve for green burial. So I'd like to put that on the table as well. And if there are any questions, I'll try to answer what I can, but
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commission?
I have a question. Are they marked like traditional graves would be?
some places do, actually, they'll put like a rock or something there. The Williamstown Township is, they will be unmarked, but they will have what they call a shepherd's wall at the entrance to it, where there will be plaques for the people that are interred there. So it's not a cemetery where you set up to actually go and visit the grave site, every Memorial Day. But they are designed to allow people to walk through and enjoy nature. The only type of maintenance that occurs is there might be minor trail maintenance and invasive species removal. Typically, they just let the land progress and go through its natural successional natural cycle.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be open land? It could have trees there already?
No, it can be any type.
Like in the woods, or would it be?
Yep, there's a place out by Grand Rapids that it's called the Burial Forest. And it's actually part of or it's located within the confines of the Hiawatha National Forest, or the Manistee National Forest.
Okay, thank you.
I had the opportunity to attend that presentation. I thought it was really interesting. I didn't realize there were so many options. Can you remind me, though, do people actually select plots? I'm
Yes.
forgetting how they're actually designated in the property.
Yeah. There will be, as I understand it, there will be specific plots that are laid out. There won't be markers, of course, but typically they're like 4 foot by 8 foot plots.
So that people would know
Yes.
where their person is.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So it may or may not have a tree on it, I guess, if it's in a forest. Any other questions? from the
Well,
commission?
can they, now we talked a little bit, the land preservation, that
Yep.
it's possible that the family could plant something there, a tree or something like that in memory of the person, near their
Provided
plot
it's-
or over their plot or
Yeah,
something.
provided it is a native. Yep.
Right.
Some places do allow that, yep.
Yeah. And
It would be-
native wildflowers or whatever, something to enhance the site itself.
Right. And it would be up to the township to determine whether or not they want to do that.
It's more of a comment, but you can also, answer it like it were a question. A long time ago, before I retired, I went to a Midwest Regional Parks meeting in St. Louis, Missouri. And our host was the City of St. Louis Parks and Rec Department. And they took us to a cemetery that had been in existence. They're older than we are, maybe since 1810 or 1820. I can't remember if it also was a minority cemetery, but it had been extensively vandalized and suffered from lack of care. And even at that time, the city of St. Louis chose many of the gravestones markers, some of which had been wood. They were gone, maybe, I'm guessing 90%. And they had done a fine job to them and us guests of putting in walkways so that it was still a public space, but I also recognized that you couldn't recreate where folks had been buried. So the thought I have that maybe you'd like to comment on is, say a cemetery that started in 1810, is it probable that those folks were buried in wooden caskets that are also gone?
I would assume so.
My family plot is in New Troy, which also is somewhat older than this area, like from 1820 or so, and this would be 1850 or so. It's well maintained by Weesaw Township, and there really haven't been gravestones that have been lost, or I guess you'd say destroyed, but I just wonder if you had any thoughts about the old history of, maybe, I'm not aware of any in Detroit, but of old, very old cemeteries, and are they kind of in effect green burial areas already?
Yeah. Gabi, in her presentation, she touched on when embalming and the whole rigmarole around funerals that we have now first started to take place. But green burials were how people were buried, for as long as burials have been taking place. And it's only within, I think it was in the 1800s when they started to do that. But yeah, I think Riverside Cemetery right on Grand River, there are probably some graves there that are grave sites there that date back to that time and are green.
And you were telling us at the land preservation meeting that in 30 years that they could maybe put
Yes.
somebody else in that plot.
Right. That's, as I understand it, that's what Williamson's going to do. After 30 years, a certain plot will be allowed to be reused again.
Annie, did you have any questions?
I don't think so, I just thank you so much. You taught me something today, which is always
Okay.
wonderful, and it's making me think about, long-term planning for myself, and we're all thinking right now, we're all like, what's going on?
It's a somber time.
And, yeah, I mean, right, and part of the reason I've actually, wanted to be cremated was because I wanted a more green, I wanted a more green experience for myself and for my family. Probably for me, I guess, than them. But, so this is, I think, a really interesting concept, and I like the fact that you can reuse it. And so today your ask is, or really no ask today, just education about what a green burial is. And it sounds like you're putting the bug out there for us to sort of have the conversation, think about, and maybe explore together as a group if there's a park that we would see something like this being of interest or something like that,
Okay,
which
well, I
I can commit
appreciate
to
you.
doing, having that conversation.
Appreciate letting me come and talk to you about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, do we have any other public comments? We have public comments on here 3 times this time.
Just in case.
Just in case, okay, just checking.
Barry, you always read this stuff, so thank you, Mary.
Okay.
We'll make, I'm sure Bridget and Lou will make sure next month, maybe there's only 2.
No, I just
I
thought
didn't
maybe I was
notice it.
missing something, so. Okay, our next agenda item is approval of the minutes from January 10th. Our last meeting, we didn't actually have a quorum, but we still need to approve the minutes from the previous meeting before that. Were there any changes recommended to those minutes?
No.
No, I don't
I
have
didn't have
any.
any changes.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second?
A vote, everybody in favor, say aye.
Hey,
Opposed, nay. Hearing no nays, the minutes are approved.
quick question. I want to encourage our friends, for example, our friends in the Hillbrook pickleball group, to look at our minutes, and I hadn't done that. Lou, are they online where people can look at them?
Absolutely.
I mean, I glanced over folks' comments, and I'm positive that Bridget and Lou captured their essence of their points of view and the essence of the person who wants tennis to remain there. So I'll encourage you folks in the Hillbrook group to take a look at them.
Yeah, those that weren't present maybe would be.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, people have talked among themselves. There was 3 or 4 Hillbrookers there, and there's 40 or 50, and I know they've networked personally and on their Facebook site to say, again, how positive they were about their reception by us, and us as them, of course.
Always interesting to hear, perspectives. It's a tight spot, but I would think, I don't think that's the end of the conversation, but I think it was captured well in the minutes, so it's a good thing. Okay, next agenda item is communications. And with that, we have the meeting notes from February 4th, so that won't need to actually be voted on, or does it
No.
have to be voted on?
They're just in for information.
Just for information. Okay. Any questions on that meeting? Anyone? No? Okay. Then the next communication is on the Hillbrook Park pickleball players.
Yeah, sure, so about a year or so ago, the pickleball group hosted a tournament, and they raised funds, it was probably longer ago than I'm even remembering, to purchase 2 AED machines and also windscreens for Towner and Hillbrook courts. And so we do have the AED machine connected at Towner Road Park, but Hillbrook was a little more of a challenge because we have no facility there. But the East Lansing Meridian Water Sewer Authority has a building there. And so we ended up being able to work with them and just recently received approval to attach the AED there because it has to be plugged into a source. And the AED machine is in a box. And you need to call 911 in order to get the code to open the box. And so when you call, so what's happening is right away, they're calling 911. And the address of the park is right there as well, because a lot of times you're, nervous. And you're not quite sure where you're at. So they get and then they get the machine, but while they get the machine out of the box and go to help someone, the ambulance is already on the way. And so anyway, Beth Stedman had called me and said, Luann, when are we going to get the AED machine up at Hillbrook? And I said, well, thank you for the call and for the kick in the pants, because I just need to get that connection with Elmswa to get that approval. And within a week, we had it up. And so she brought us some homemade chocolate chip cookies.
And they're here tonight.
With that little note that's in the communications or whatever. But the cookies were fabulous, and I would love the recipe because they were like some of the best cookies I've ever had. But anyway, we've got really good communication with those folks, and I was happy to get that up. And now we're working with our paramedics to host a training for the pickleball players at both
Great
Towner
idea.
and Hillbrook on just how to use it. And it's very self-explanatory. When you open the box, there's a voice and it talks you through it. But when you're in an emergency situation like that, it sure is better to have gone through just even a one time or two times through the whole process, so you're like ready to act and save someone's life if needed. So anyway, that was the note about the cookies and the thank you.
Thought it was a recipe card.
Yeah.
And hearing
Yeah, I need
you
the
talk
recipe.
about the upcoming training, when I worked at the Hanna Center, we had an AED machine, and it had to be used one day. I was on duty, but I was upstairs, and one of the lifeguards, or one of the people in the workout area, he used it on the person, and to all of us, we asked for training, and we were rebuffed in the sense of, well, it's ABC. Well, that's not so comforting if you worry that you might have to use the thing. So I know, Mary, you remember Ken Carruthers, his daughter Dee worked for the rec department, and whether it was, in a sense, almost authorized or not, Dee had a training for us, and it really reassured me and all the rest, because she kept saying, do you have questions? Do you have questions? I think the training is going to be very well received, and I hope I can make it. I mean, I hope I can go to the training. Yeah, make it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that people are being trained so that you can make it.
Yes, exactly.
Many of us are holding off until they get that training, and then we're going to get it.
You know, it's interesting. This is a result of something else in the conference last week, but I think part of this training is sometimes it's just a reminder to breathe. You know, those that admit, like Luann said, you're nervous, and it's like, I didn't realize that once you kind of start holding your breath when you're nervous, you can't dial a phone. There's a lot of things you can't do.
You can't remember where you are.
Exactly.
What street you're on.
Yeah, so
Or
that's
have the
training
state
can be
record
helpful.
lake trout on, or the Cubs are in the World Series. And Dee also gave us a refresher, if you will, you know, in first aid and resuscitation. It's the best one I've ever had as far as folks, you know, that are in a pool and are in distress. Just laid it right down for us, and I imagine our paramedics will do a great job.
I know they will.
Yes, absolutely.
Luann, do we need to place these on file?
Yes.
Okay.
To accept and place on file.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept and place on file the communications. Amanda, second? Mark? Everybody in favor, say
See, I'm
aye. Opposed,
It's the
nay?
UP version, Mary, hey, so.
With that, we'll accept and place those communications on file. It's like we do not have any action
We
items.
do not.
No.
Okay. And then I'll turn over agenda 10 on discussion items, park projects for 2023.
Okay, so I just thought it would be good to have a little discussion and a reminder of the types of projects that we have going on for 2023. And take this opportunity now that we're televised here at this meeting, which I'm very happy to be here with everyone, so we can share all the wonderful work that Park Commission is doing and Parks and Recreation staff is doing, and to share that with everyone. So here we're at one of our first project here, our windscreens at Marketplace on the Green. And this is our new facility on Central Park Drive, for those of you who are not aware. It hosts our farmers markets on Saturdays and on Wednesdays during the summer. And what we don't see on this picture here is the berm of land, which is off to the left or off to the west of the site. And we believe that the aerodynamics of the hill there coming down and through the pavilion, it's really windy on certain
I
occasions.
didn't even think about that.
And so there's two things that we're doing to help rectify that. And one is we're going to plant trees up on the berm, the entire length of the berm. And then also, we are looking at retractable windscreens that are remote control, and they can go up and down, and they will be on this western side of the pavilion, because that seems to be where most of the wind is coming from. And these are ones that we'll just put down when needed and then back up, so they're not going to stay down all the time. And this whole retractable windscreen system is something we'll probably use on another project I'll talk about here in a minute for the Central Park Pavilion. But we're looking at all of that getting done here in the spring. So we're very, very excited about that. And the funding for those windscreens are an allocation from the township's American Rescue Plan funds.
Great.
So, because this is a site that was rocking during COVID with the farmer's market. And we've been getting 3,000 visitors on a Saturday for the market. So it is really a center of commerce for our community.
I see it mentioned in the community a lot too, on different social media. It's amazing how it's picked up.
Yeah.
And kudos to you and your staff.
While we have this photo up here, you can, at the top of the photo, you can see the striped crosswalk. Well, for some reason, and people just aren't used to it being there, but a lot of people don't heed and yield to the pedestrians there. And so during Celebrate Meridian, which is on June 24th, and the road will be closed for the food truck rally, we are going to do some fun painting of that crosswalk. And with vibrant colors and maybe a little more artistic. I'm thinking of maybe reaching out to our artists for the murals that we have at the dog park and at Wanch Park and at Hillbrook Park. And something, because that roadway paint will dry in a short period of time. So we can paint it that day and then it'll be good. And I think it's really going to stand out more and be another artistic feature of our community on the crosswalk.
I went by there today. It was actually to look at the new sign. But,
I was just going to mention
and thought about that. And you had mentioned before about how at Saugatuck and Douglas, they've done that in the crosswalks. And it's just enough to, brighten it up and slow people down. Because that still is they seem to be slower now, but people still go around that area pretty quick. Yeah.
Okay, Harris Nature Center. We have budgeted this year to make upgrades to the exterior of the building. And in the last couple of years, we've added a picnic shelter and a new restroom building, year-round restroom building. And those two amenities have brick accents. And we are going to continue that brick accent at the Nature Center at the front area at the foyer. And then also repaint the brick and add new siding. So we're excited about some upgrades to the Harris Nature Center, because that's been 25 years and it's really a renovated house. And most of that renovation took place on the inside and not to the outside. So we're excited to bring a little freshness to that site. Then, next up, last year, the Park Commission acquired this, I believe it's 3-acre parcel, and it's on Okemos Road at the railroad tracks at Nancy Moore Park in front of the Meridian Service Center. And Nancy Moore Park was one of our first community parks with the soccer fields, the ball diamonds, trails, and there's really no face to that park, to the roadway or to the community. And it's such a wonderful facility, centrally located. And when this parcel became available, it was just an ideal opportunity for us to do that and to put some signage and some, what's the word I was looking for? Curb appeal to, on Okemos Road, we need a little more curb appeal anyway. So to do something that's going to look nice and it's functional, but then also on top of it, there's a new trail going in, the MSU to Lake Lansing Trail. And so this area meets about halfway and is going to serve as a trailhead rest area for those trail users. So there'll be a restroom building there, small parking lot. We don't have it designed yet, but that's the plan for this year, is just to get a site plan for this site. And then we can go after grants to help with the development. And there was a grant that we were successful at getting, a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant to acquire that property. So we're excited about just getting a site design for that that's going to meet all of our requirements of curb appeal for the park and then also a nice resting area or kickoff area for anyone doing the MSU to Lake Lansing Trail.
Will the signage come out of that budget, or would it come out of a signage budget?
Not sure yet, because we'll have the Nancy Moore Park sign will come out of the parks budget. But when we look at, if there's any additional signage for the trail and the trailhead, that will come out of.
Okay, but the new signage will come out of a.
Yes.
It won't come out of site. Okay,
No, that'll come out of Park Millage.
all right, thank you.
Yep.
So Luann, this year, I'm thinking the Park Commission will probably be looking at concept plans in conjunction with the site engineering, so there'll
Yeah,
be
because
an
we're not even
opportunity to-
engineering. We'll
Right.
bring a consultant in, we'll all sit around a table and look at different options and see which one that you all prefer.
So we can look forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a question about a different topic, so
Okay.
go ahead.
I go there often enough, maybe I trespass on the railroad, that's another question. What are those, Mark, do you know, what are those white cedars or spruce that are on the drive? Anyway, I know if we do
I think those are red pines.
oh, you think so? Anyway, if we do an entrance, many or all those trees are gonna go. I wonder if you've had any thoughts about them. I think they might be over mature, but I sure don't know. I'm not a forester.
Yeah, we're not in any space right now to even have an idea of what that would
The
look
other
like.
thing it does, and I don't think it was intended when they were put in, is it makes that entry, whether you're on foot, a bicycle, or a car, it makes it very dark and almost gloomy.
Right. Well, those are things we can all look at when we get into some site planning, which I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be great
That's
fun.
my cool off.
Because there's still, I mean, I jokingly, but not really, talked about moving that road, taking that road out of there. Like Gaylord C. Smith Road. and
Right.
Putting it in a different spot and
that's
making that into a park.
You know what? Everything is on the table for that.
Oh, wow.
And then my other thought too is to keep the roadway and just curve the edge. So when you came into the park, there would be like an automatic curve down into the facility instead of spending money on building the new roadway through that parcel. I think there's some way we can amend that road so it just takes you to the park instead of, right now, it's like, okay, and everybody just goes straight because there's nothing
Right.
driving their
You
eye
said
to the
that
left.
even when we were thinking about buying
Yeah.
the house, that's a fact of life. People often miss the turn and drive round in circles.
I think more people miss the turn into the park than make it, because there's a lot of folks that come down and then they zoom through our parking lot and then they figure out that they need to head down that roadway. But, no, I think there's some different things that we can take a look at with this. And I'll be bringing someone in here in the next month or two.
It'll be exciting just to start those conversations.
Yeah,
And it might be an interesting idea to think about that existing roadway being an entrance and then building the exit so that it kind of like flows, so that everybody isn't coming and going in the same
right.
entrance and exit. I don't know, just something to think about to help.
That's all good stuff.
But I didn't want to forget it because I will, so. I wanted it on record.
Did you have
then,
another?
I
you said
did, I
you
did have
another-
one more. Oh, good, we're going to this next photo. Oh, not that one. I do want to, Bridget, will you
you
stop
scroll
at
back?
the crosswalk? I have a question about, I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about that again.
The crosswalk?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I was wondering, we talk about it being such a busy area, and when I'm looking at this picture, when I'm at the site, I think about, okay, the way the sidewalks are, there's a sidewalk connecting me to the dog park, but there isn't anything like directly across it. I'm just wondering if it makes sense to have multiple crosswalks. So not just this one, but then the one in the center and one here. So it's almost like we're creating a whole section of road where we need folks to slow down. So that, because we have people crossing, I see it all the time, directly across from here because they park in this parking lot as opposed to, parking the farther one. But then it's just creating a much larger section, and it sort of stands out in a way of this whole section, people need to slow down. I don't know, when you were talking about painting this one, it makes a total sense to me, and I think it's a great idea as a start. But I think it's just that one section And then so they slow down and then they speed back up again. If we made it larger with multiple crosswalks or multiple painted sections, maybe that would just trick people's mind into slowing down more.
Almost like two-dimensional rumble
Yeah.
strips. And I think we talked about that because there's a little bit of an odd dynamic going on
Yes,
with
there
crossing the
is.
road. We thought we'd see how it goes. And that's exactly when I came by there today was thinking, I'd always thought across, but even if there's one more there. Might,
People with their dogs especially.
yes. Yeah, it's just, when we're there, we actually, there's just a tendency to walk at a different spot. So
And
I think it's a great opportunity, but I would think that would slow people down a little
Yeah,
bit.
and I'm not even necessarily suggesting, because I know that takes like money to cut a sidewalk and all of that. Like, I think it would be great if we could, but even in the short term, if we just painted, if we're gonna paint this section, like, could we paint like another section going across another, like, so that you're clearly entering a section of road where it needs to be. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we can put a request in, because we don't control the roads,
Yeah,
Ingham
that's
County
what I was
does, right?
reading,
And they're the ones who pretty much told us that that's where that crosswalk would go based on sightlines. It wasn't necessarily where we wanted it, but we took it there, because that's where they said. But I
Yeah.
think it's always worth another conversation and more questions.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to post, and I've brought it up before, is just an overall continuing reminder to our community members or a education campaign, but something that's not just once, about stopping at these crosswalks, because the same thing happens on Okemos Road. You have to cross the road from one side to get to the other, across. If you're on the interurban trail, you have to cross Okemos. And then when we have the MSU to Lake Lansing Trail, they're gonna have to cross Okemos farther south. And people do not stop. I mean, I cross it multiple times a week, and it's more rare. And sometimes it's almost dangerous for someone to slow down, because the other cars aren't in the same mindset, and they almost slam into that person. So I also think, I think it would just, an education campaign would be good overall for a number of our crossing areas, including the schools.
It's a good suggestion.
At one time, we talked about maybe putting in a center, like what do they call it, an island in the center, that would slow things down and, and was that something that the road commission said we're not going to do something like that? Or, because that would give a person an opportunity to stop in the
Right.
middle if another car's coming by or
Kind
something.
of like in Grand River at the campus there.
Yeah, kind of like only smaller, I don't know why it looks like there's a left turn lane all the
Right.
way through there,
Right.
so that's what,
I'll bring that up. I know when there was conversations taking place about this with the road diets, there used to be 2 lanes in each direction. And they restriped this to put 1 lane in each direction and a center turn lane, but they did talk about putting islands in.
I think,
But obviously they
islands you
didn't
could
do
put, if, I've seen, large flower pots or something along there that would just bring, natural beauty to the area, and people slow down that way, and although that would block sightline, but they would have to slow down for that. I don't know I'm not a,
Well, let me ask some questions.
Yeah.
And maybe involve Dan Opsmer, that he might be a good liaison, since he's so responsive to everything, that maybe he could sort of go to bat for us.
Yeah, I noticed in Carmel, Indiana, when I was there a couple weeks ago, they have like movable flower pots that you're trying, like they have wheels, but they're like stationary. And so maybe that's even something in the short term, or something we could think about doing long term, where you could actually move them out of the road if you needed to, but they're stationary for the most part and kind of help like slow people down. But in looking at this photo, we've got 2 crosswalk sections in the parking lot, but not crossing like a major road.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
it just was glaringly obvious to me that like, wow, that's something we probably need to address.
I think years ago, and maybe Mark's the only other person still, I sent Lou some pictures of Allegan, Michigan, where they if I recall, it was quite a few years ago, they have a definite island where their walkway is. In other words, I mean, it's cement and nothing movable in that, but, then they have 2 yellow lights, or actually 3, as you're driving through it, and
Yeah.
Yeah, they have that in Madeira Beach down there, you have to cross into that center lane.
Right.
And then there's, people are stopping on one side, and then there's another stop for the other side. So if people do get held up, somebody's really slow going, there's a place to wait and,
Yeah, well, that brings back good memories. I was walking on the beach in Madeira Beach years ago. Mark's there, he was staying at the place like 2 doors down from us.
That's awesome.
You know,
it's like,
So
what are you doing
Luann,
here?
this is actually the jurisdiction of the county, you said, though?
Yes. Yeah,
So for anything would have to be a collaboration.
correct. All right, next up, Launch Park, or Ferguson, what do I have here next?
Launch.
Launch canoe
I said
landing.
Launch, but I meant Ferguson. So Ferguson Park, this was a picture from 2001, after we had just done the stream bank stabilization. This was my first project, I think, starting here.
That's higher water too.
And so there's stream bank stabilization, and then we planted some shrubs up along the top, and there was a little chicken wire fence up along the top of that riprap. And because we had such a problem with ducks and geese. And this seemed to do the trick for us. And then this canoe landing went in, and it's accessible with a ramp down to it. But now, you can't even see any of this. I think it's like all underwater most of the year. And then all the sediment from the river seems to fall into the area where there's like a little inlet there where the launch is, and everything just kind of settles in there. So this design that was put together for us really wasn't the best design for us. So I'm going to hire another consultant to take a look at this, see what their recommendations would be for improvements, because maybe it's not the site, it's the location. And maybe we just need to look at building a new one somewhere else. So before we put much money into it, I mean, it's a nice place to go when the water's lower, you can sit on the step. And I know, Mark, you've done some fishing programs from there, the salmon releases with all the school children.
Yeah, but we don't go in there ever because
It's too mucky.
It's too mucky, yeah. We always, well, when the water's really high, we release on the stairs. When you're standing on the stairs,
Yeah,
you're still
right.
releasing the water, but up by that tree that you can see on the far left side, that area is cut out, and that's where we let kids into the water. That's where it's a nice solid sandy bottom, and there's tree roots from that step down into the river, and that's where I thought of having limestone around those roots to protect that tree and stepping down into the water where it's nice and solid there. So that
Well,
would
we can
be,
take a look at that as well. We're
that
gonna
would be
bring someone in
where,
to take a
that
look
would
at
be
this.
where I think kayakers and canoers could put in really nicely,
Okay,
actually.
yeah, and maybe, yeah, we just relocate it, and that could be the best answer for us, but.
Maybe
Okay.
something more naturalized.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, like they have at Kriegel Park, they have those flat limestone, and they put one in the water, like solid on the water, and then step them up. And they can be different, widths and everything.
Those
so,
can be often be transfer stations too.
Yeah,
For somebody in a wheelchair if they choose to get down there. So,
I'd be curious to see if they think the opposite side, like Wanch, would be a better location for it, just because of the way the river flows and cuts. It makes sense to me
Right.
that,
yeah, the water energy goes from up behind that tree into that big hole that's on the other side of the river there, where it's fairly deep. And it just kind of swirls around, it hits that and kind of curves right to this section where that's where all the silt is. And then when a lot of branches get in there, it slows it even more and the silt builds up even more. So, over the years, you guys have taken out big trees and stuff. That's good. And then there's a tree down there now. If you notice, there's a tree in that
Right.
water right in that area. So that may cause some problems, either digging holes out when the water's rushing over it, or just slowing the water enough where that silt can deposit even more. So,
All right,
well, I'm glad you're looking at that, because it's a nice area in the summer, you know, you can walk all the way across that river. It's nice and solid bottom. It's just that spot right
I
there
know.
where it was either dug out. I don't know what they did when they built it, if they dug that out in order to put the stairs in or something, but it holds silk pretty well.
Yeah.
So maybe a consultant that has it's not somebody we might normally hire, but somebody that understands water dynamics a
definitely.
little bit, almost
Yeah.
like, yes.
All right.
And this is the area we were talking about with that plan that I keep bringing that plan up about, you know, putting boulders in and making it kind of a natural, you know, oxygenation of water and
Right.
kind of making fishing pools and stuff. That would be the area that I would really want to focus on, that and then under the bridge around that curve to Launch Park.
Okay, the next one, did we get a picture for the next one? We did not. So, as we all know, and we've been enduring the bridge being out on Oakland Road between Launch and Ferguson Parks. The end is near. It's going to be open here in another week or two.
I don't even know what life was like before, and I feel like I've forgotten that I could actually go.
It's so exciting.
It's going to take me some time to retrain my brain.
We recently drove on the finished north side, though.
Yeah, that's nice.
It was like, it felt so strange.
Yeah.
I've driven on it often, and then it'll be like a giant slingshot when they open both
It's
directions.
going to be
It'll be
great.
very nice because the sight line is beautiful along there. You can see the river and they put
Yeah.
that step down bridge. The trees aren't there any longer that kind of block you from looking at the river. So maybe you look at the road if, you know, but looking at the
Yeah.
river is kind of nice. Hope that doesn't cause a lot of problems.
So, yeah, me too. But years ago, like when I even started in 99 on the 6-year CIP, capital improvement program, there was an item to put an under the bridge walkway. So people could go from between Ferguson and Launch, and it would be safer. And that was on the plan. And that was on the plan for like ever. And we would have people come out and look, and they would say, Luann, it's just not feasible. The hydraulics of the river and the location of this bridge, there's no way this can happen. Finally, I think, not even that long ago, we just dropped it off the list because it appeared that it wasn't going to happen. And that lo and behold, the bridge replacement project. So we could go back to that CIP and say, hey, this is something we've had on a plan. That's the beauty of having plans. And there was no intention from the road department to do this, but once we brought it to their attention, they included it as part of the bridge project. So
That's
the part
true.
that's
Once we told them it needed to be done, then they put it.
well, just because we thought it needed to be done doesn't mean they were going to do it. But
point is they did it.
They did agree to do it, but they would not do the connection pieces. So from that under the bridge pathway up to our bicycle pedestrian pathway, I think they're meeting in the administrative conference room. Then those two connections to Launch and Ferguson they're on us to connect those. And so our engineering department has done some plans, and we're looking at about, $150,000 to get that done. So we will need a budget amendment sometime this year to complete that project. But boy, how exciting.
amazing.
It'd be nice.
Oh, for the school children to be able to, traverse back and forth without having to cross the roadway. Oh,
Yeah.
I think it's really a great benefit and a great feature too, to the parks, to the pathway, to the bridge.
Almost
I'm looking
becomes
forward
one
to
part.
fishing that hole on that side.
Pardon?
It's almost like becomes one
Yeah,
part.
exactly. It kind of connects everything.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to fishing that hole because that's a pretty good access site.
Okay, I'm getting near the end here. There's just a lot we have going on, but it's good to talk about these things. So the next one is, the township did a rebranding program a few years ago. And we have come up with a design for park signage and just township signage overall. And so right now, they're just starting the installation of a handful of signs. 2 of them are welcome to Meridian signs at different entry points to the community. And then there is this first one, which people at home are going to have a hard time seeing it, but the very first one that has an electronic message board. There's one of those being installed currently in front of Marketplace on the Green, and then also on Marsh Road at the entrance to the Township Hall. And those are the only two of that size of a sign that's being put in. The rest of them are much smaller in size.
So will that one have a message sign too? For some
Yes.
reason, I thought only Marketplace was having the
No,
message.
both of them do, and we're
That
hoping
makes
to
sense.
reduce the whole banner situation. That is like, anytime we're gonna have an event or something, you need to get a banner or put out signs, and there was nothing to put messages on. So we're excited, and this will be a sign that doesn't have a running message, it has a message. And then we don't want anyone to like take their eyes off the road because they're trying to see all the information. It's one message that will be up there at a time. But when you look at some of these other sizes of signs, there's a variety that will be going in all of our parks. And there's a number of, right now, I think for this year, we're just doing the park identification sign change out. And I was somewhere recently, where was I? And I was right next to, we had a group of people from the M Parks on the trail off-site conference, and they came and they walked the wooden boardwalk.
Nice.
And I walked by our Nancy Moore Park sign, and it's such bad shape. It's embarrassing how much it's deteriorated. It's not good. I am so excited to get some new fresh signs in throughout our community and our parks, and so that's one of them.
Question, because I did see that today. Did that just go up like within days?
Yes.
Okay, because I drive by there a lot, and I think it was today or yesterday, I noticed that it
He
looks
had the
really nice.
framework up, but not.
Okay, yeah, it looks
anything
nice.
identifiable.
Across the street, though, I didn't notice, and I didn't look either, but just, I guess it's a question. Will they put one up for the dog park, so it kind of helps advertise the dog park?
You know, I did not order one for the dog park for this time installation. We can.
Yeah,
I
make
have
something
Central
much
Park
smaller,
South, which
yeah.
is just right down the block. I just want to make sure we don't oversign ourselves.
Right. But I do think a lot of people don't necessarily know where the dog park is.
Yeah.
I think you don't know it's there unless you look, or you know it's there, so it might be a way to get some more members.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Would you make it like a big fire hydrant or something?
That's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
It'd be brown, but that's another story.
Okay, Central Park Pavilion, right out here. Probably our most highly utilized pavilion in our system right now, and it was installed in 1978.
Oh, my gosh.
And it needs some love. And that is what our plan is this year. We're not exactly sure what will happen, but it has these sidewalls. And then there's also tarps that we hang on it occasionally when people are having other activities in there, and it could be getting like springtime and it's still chilly, or fall and it's getting cold. The garden club has their sale in there, and they asked to have those tarps put up. But when this pavilion was constructed, it was constructed for the farmer's market that was just getting underway, and what they wanted to make it a multi-use facility. But it's angled, and its attention is focused on the parking lot and not the park.
Yeah.
And so now that the farmer's market isn't here any longer, part of it is to add vegetation between, whether it's trees, shrubs, between the parking lot and the pavilion. And then we'll probably be taking off these sidewalls and then getting those retractable windscreens to put down when necessary. Paint job or wrap it in vinyl coating. I think the roof is still in decent shape. And then there's those bathroom buildings in the back. And we're gonna have to hire an engineer to help us, but I think maybe we keep one side, make it unisex, get rid of the rest. So a lot of it just opens up into the park and the historical village. I just think it was great for what we needed it for. And when we did the whole Central Park Master Plan back in 2014, we were gonna remove that and just build a new one in a different location. But when you're in that pavilion, the bones of that thing are so good that you hate to just tear it down. And that concrete pad, there's not a crack in it. And so there's no need to eliminate it. It's like, how can we work with what we have here and make it better? So that's one of the other projects. And then one more thing we have
Just
going
Lynn,
on.
that's actually really well used. I know I've had an opportunity through Sporties for Shorties, I think it is, with Mike's group, that the kids, I mean, they can eat lunch there. It's amazing how much the families actually are still using that pavilion.
So it's under great demand. I
Yeah.
just have noticed over the years, if it's any kind of a coolish, wettish day, it's just kind of gloomy in there. But like you said, the bones are great and maybe
Yeah, you
it
just hate
could
to
be
tear it down.
opened up some.
That would help with the lighting too. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
is there any way to put different lighting in there?
Oh, sure.
It's not very bright at all,
Right.
even with lights on.
Well, and we added
there's
this drop
lights in it.
ceiling. It used to just be the rafters like a typical pavilion, but with the farmer's market and the
Like
bird
bulbs.
nests and droppings or whatever, we added the drop ceiling and added lights, but we'll certainly take a look at all of that as part of that project.
I think just taking those walls down, if you're gonna do that,
Yeah.
will help with the whole brightening of the
Yeah,
whole
they're not-
thing. And
Socially needed,
So
they're structurally needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it take on a little bit of a modern look to it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, just like.
Complementary to the marketplace.
Yeah, yeah. And, something that maybe even people would want to have like receptions in if they're getting married at the church or something, where it's like a little bit more,
Yeah.
where it's darker paint on this, like a.
It's
dark-
pretty rustic right
Yeah.
now.
like if you do the roofs, you would do like blue or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Make it, yeah. So the bathrooms,
Like-
if you take those bathrooms out or take one of them out, or even leave them there, aren't they pump station
Yeah, I was gonna say,
oriented? Don't
Well,
they have to have,
yeah.
can you eliminate the
Like a
pump
force main
station
or
if we can get
something
rid of
out of
them?
No, the lift station has to stay, but whether the bathrooms are there or not is irrelevant.
I got it.
Oh, okay, all right. So it does have to stay. You can't get rid of those.
Not the lift station, the rest, we could get rid of both restrooms, because we did build the new restroom building that's
Right.
just at the entrance to the village.
Okay.
So I guess it's still up for debate. My thought was maybe just to keep one, kids playing soccer.
Yeah.
There's just one right
Yeah, I
there.
think the
unisex
bathrooms are
one,
nice.
yeah. I was just thinking if you could eliminate the pump station
Yeah, oh,
by getting rid of them, then why wouldn't we do that? But
Amen.
yeah, if
Yeah.
not, then.
I already-
probably
yeah.
good.
I'd ask that question. And then we have an ongoing project with the historical village. We just had hired an architectural review of all the structures to make sure that they're still available and sound for public use. And then what needs to be done in there? And we ended up receiving a very detailed report with pictures and also cost estimates and a prioritized list per structure. I mean, the report was really very thorough. And so we'll be sitting down with Friends of Historic Meridian. There's some things that we'll have to hire, like there's, I think, 3 structures need new roofs. There's some electrical work that needs to be done in a couple places. And, but some of it could be volunteerish or hire a handyman to come in and just kind of attack some of these things. I think it's all very doable. And I think working together, we're going to be able to get this stuff knocked off here in a couple years. It's probably going to be a couple year project, but the historical village is such a gem of our park system, and the structures are unique because they're historical in nature, so they don't, but you still want to try to do what you can to make them as accessible as possible without destroying their original meaning for the commission. But anyway, we've got a good list, and now we're going to meet and get our
From the
action
last
plan
meeting,
together.
so that the other commissioners could see it that weren't at the last meeting. The list that you provided
Yeah, I thought it was in their packet, though.
last time,
Wasn't it? Did you get the list? That had
Probably.
like 3 pages of things?
just as a reminder.
I'll send it back out. Yeah, it's not in this one, but it was in
Good, I've seen it,
So
the last meeting.
they did such a nice job of prioritizing too, how
did,
critical
color coding
different
and everything.
elements
Yeah.
were. I thought they did a real nice job, the consultant did.
Yeah, so I think
It's a
we've
big
got-
undertaking. There's nothing easy there, and it's a fairly big complex. And when you're talking about historic buildings,
Right.
that can be. a
Well, you know what, and like Brad had said earlier, COVID didn't help matters. I mean, their bread and butter is a lot of the school groups coming in for the educational programs and the summer camps, and that all just kind of got put on pause for a while. And then these buildings sat empty. Well, there's nothing good ever happens when a building sits empty. So there's that, and then now, things are starting to come back to life here. So, but anyway, I think we'll work together and we'll get some of these things attacked and taken care of, and make sure that this remains in its pristine condition here for the community. I think that is all on that topic.
Wonderful.
And if there's, yeah, if there's more, but these are the things that we're working on to get done this year. So, yeah, I'm going on vacation on Friday. This could be my last day off for a while, but we're going to get after it and yeah, looking forward to another good year.
Okay, thank you,
end of that one.
Lillian. Did, any additional questions for Director Nixon? Commissioners?
I don't have.
Okay, Commissioner Stevens, do you have anything to add on land preservation?
No, the only thing I was gonna comment on was Bruce coming in with the green, the green burials and, the first thing that came to my mind was, we got that new Sander Farm area. And wouldn't that be kind of a cool place to have a memorial to our community in that, where you're not really impacting the natural area at all and,
Right.
and you can enhance it, using family funds, if they want to put in a plot of wildflowers or a tree or something like that, it could be part of a whole plan. And I was thinking, because he said something about, well, what kind of work would it be for our township, for our folks to take care of that, and but then when they said it was hand dug, they were worried about, dragging other invasives on wheels to place it, to that area and causing problems with that. And, but if it's all hand dug, it's dug by families, or I think it'd be really cool. You could get high school kids sports teams as like, we had a burial in our community and they're digging for you and, all kinds of, cool stuff. It's like, make it a kind of a nice thing, for people and their families, so.
One thing, excuse me, from sitting in on that presentation, I was impressed by, is it Williamstown Township?
Yeah.
Williamstown.
But how detailed, they had spent quite a bit of time working through this and the details, and it was really interesting and a little more complex than I might have thought.
Yeah, yeah, you have to know exactly where the people are, and,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I wouldn't mind letting Williamstown Township start it,
Yeah,
and
work
see
on it
how
for a little bit,
they're
see how
going,
it's
and then
going.
kind of learn from them a little bit.
They've been doing it out west for a long time,
Yeah, I think it'd
in
be
California. And,
a great thing to explore, especially, Meridian Township kind of takes a lot of pride in our environmental stewardship, and I feel like this would be a natural next step, potentially.
But I think the biggest picture though, first time I heard about the Sander place is historically, it's not, there's not much parking there.
Right,
There's not much parking encouraged there,
right.
but
It's
the
a-
neighbors, I don't think,
Yeah.
and you park on the side street, really.
it's a-
Adobe Road's pretty busy.
Right,
I'd be fine with it, but I don't know if it'd be a walk in the park, with a 50-car parking lot in there.
yeah, I don't know if it's like,
Or
I
10.
think these burials, I think aren't really like, they're trying to encourage people to not have massive burials and huge funerals and, come out and, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's more of, intimate family quaintness, putting people on the ground kind of
But
thing.
in a sense now, maybe it's changed since the passing of the person. There's really no parking there, officially, is there?
no,
I don't think
there's
so.
not. I mean, the only access and parking truly that is connected to it is through Tacoma Hills.
The west
and then
side,
back,
right.
and
And
then
those
even
are
then, it's
Those are
only,
street ends, aren't they?
right, it's a street end that abuts to the park.
Yeah.
And it's a trail there, but there's not any, like that, you would be parking in front of homes, right?
Yep, like-
Yeah, so I mean, I think I was thinking, didn't we acquire a property on Jolly at some point throughout the year? I'm trying to remember. It was
A
not,
land preserve
it was a land preserve.
at Van Atta and Jolly.
Is it Van Atta and Jolly? Yeah, that, I was thinking of that. That's where my mind went. And it starts with an S, right? It's,
Well, Ponderosa.
is it Ponderosa? It is Ponderosa. Yeah, you're right. And so it doesn't start with an S.
Ponderosa.
Yeah, Ponderosa. That's how I remembered
I
it.
was like,
but
wait,
that's-
and it doesn't start with us.
I've
That's what I
been
was
there a few
thinking of,
times
because
and
it's so much, like, it's a little bit farther removed.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, but at the same time, it warrants definitely more conversation. I just think it's fascinating,
It is fascinating. I think it's really cool. It's what
Yeah.
they used to do in the old days, you know, I mean,
right?
put people in the ground, pine box, kind of like that.
Is Ponderosa a land preserve?
Oh, yeah,
It's a trust fund or two,
Yes,
yeah, it's both.
right?
Yeah,
that would be interesting to know how the trust fund feels about
green burial.
green burials.
Oh, that's
I wouldn't
interesting,
ask
yeah.
them.
Yeah, don't ask the question.
Okay.
I would ask Emma, though, I mean, seriously, I really would almost start with Emma, because she's done such a great job of using that and all the other places
I
she
don't
does.
know if they would be opposed to that, actually, because you're perpetuating the property even more by putting it in as a burial site.
And just something I thought
Yeah.
about too when you said
If you ever
grant
get John Mays to talk, you take him out.
It'll
regulations.
be out,
That's all true.
it'll be interesting to see what the other township does.
Yeah, right, that's exactly it.
Okay, Director Massner, Director's report.
Okay, I will try to whip through this one pretty quickly. So lots of great things going on in the Parks and Recreation Department. We started this new monthly digital newsletter called The Playbook. And if anyone's interested in getting on that list, it's on the same one if you receive the Meridian Happenings, which is like a Meridian Township quick little newsletter that goes out once a month. The Playbook just kind of talks about all the things in Parks and Recreation going on for the month. It's quick, it's one page, it's easy read. I'm so excited about it, just to get that information out. And then to partner with that, we used to put out this magazine called the Family Fun Guide for a number of years. And it was like the Parks and Recreation program brochure. Like every Parks and Recreation department has a brochure that you put together and you mail out to everyone. And, that kind of listed, it got to be, I think it was well over 32-page doc. It's like a magazine.
Very nice.
But talked about like what's going on in the historical village at Nokomis, the libraries, the farmers market, Harris Nature Center, and then in our department, and then a little bit of township news, and we talked about volunteer opportunities. And we put pictures of people in our community in that booklet. And it wasn't like some stock photo off of the internet. These were our people. And anyway, it just kind of spoke to the culture of Meridian Township when you could see it all in one place of what was going on with the land preservation and parks and recreation and all those things. And when that went away, we moved toward more digital advertising. And then we became more target marketed. And so if Mike needed to fill sporties for shorties for 4, 5, and 6-year-old kids, we knew who those people were based on our previous recreation registrations. And so we would just send a notice out to those parents of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who'd fill the class by the end of the day. But nobody else knew what else was going on at the village or anywhere else. And so everything became very segmented and nobody would see in the big picture. And so we are working on putting out here, probably in mid-April at this point, the Family Fun Guide again, that lists all of our special events and programs, and it's just for the year, all the different entities, and it's all in one place to see all the fun and engagement. I've listed all the nonprofit groups. If there people are looking to become engaged in our community and volunteer their time, I put all like the Kiwanis, the Rotary, the Harris Nature Center Foundation, Historical Village, Friends of Historic Meridian, all the different organizations. So if anyone really wants to engage and give back to their community, their websites are there for them to reach out and to do that. Because we're so fortunate with all the people that volunteer in our community and makes people feel part of where they live. And we're so appreciative of the work of our nonprofit groups. So I'm just excited to get this thing out. I don't know, it's this year, and then we'll have our monthly newsletter. And I really think we're back at promoting all the wonderful things going on in the community again. Very excited about it.
Particularly for new families, we touched on that, but you assume, but people that come into the community don't have any idea, and they're looking for things like that. So.
That's so true. We have so many new housing developments going in. And Sherry Wisdom at the Senior Center, I didn't mention the Senior Center earlier, but they're included in this. She's only promoting her programs to her members. Nobody in the entire community knows all the wonderful things going on.
Right.
So their stuff is in there as well. So I don't know, is somebody going to say something?
I attended a session at MRPA conference. Thanks for sponsoring us to go, because that was very informative, so I appreciate that. It was about telling our story, and it was great. And Sterling Heights and West Bloomfield and who else was there? There was another, Troy, I think. And they told their story, exactly what you're talking about. People need things in hand, as well as marketing on a daily level with sending messages out to those specific people that, you know, that want to know about Sporties for Shorties. You know, give them the messages, but tell everybody else in the community through hands-on pamphlets and brochures and other specific marketing for, you know, what's happening with the whole community. So it was, what you were talking about, it just remind me everything of what you're doing.
Feel free to share that in, whatever, if you had information for me.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll send you some information about it. They were very good. It was an interesting session, and they categorize everything with colors, which is nice. So if it's a sports event, they use colors, a certain, like, so everybody's, you know, if it's natural, then they use green colors, and, you know, so people are on their headings and stuff like that for their emails. So if they are interested in the sports stuff, they see orange, and if they're interested in the green stuff, they see green. So like, I'm going to go to that one. So it's, you know, it's kind of nice, and they just, you know, I think there's 5 different colors that they use.
Yeah, that's great. You know, one other example of that is the senior center, again, is that if she's only marketing to the people who are members, what about everyone else? Is, oh, my mom or my dad would love to do something like that, and missing out on all of the other engagement possibilities. That's not just for themselves, but they know people, or it's their parents who would go, something like that. So, no, very excited about that. We used to utilize ActiveNet for our recreation registration software, and that's how everyone signed up. Click their program, pay online. We've moved to a new system that's easier, still pay online, but it's easier for staff and it's easier for the community. Right now, we're asking everyone to go to the township website, go to the Parks and Recreation page, click the green button, which is register here, and you'll have to create a new account, because we can't just move everyone's information over. So we need our people everyone who's going to be participating in our programs or wants to receive additional information. It's easy just to create an account, and then that's how you would pay for anything, and also see everything of what's going on. So we're very excited about that. The Michigan Recreation and Park Association, now known as MParks, had their conference last week, and I know a number of you went, and you can speak about that a little bit later. I think we have board member or commission comments, but the part that I was involved with was the legislative day. And so they had set up times to meet with various legislators. So my group, we met with State Rep Julie Brixey, and we had chair of the Public Policy Committee for MParks and the executive director for MParks, and there were a couple other folks there from various land conservancies. And there were 3 things that we were talking about to the legislators, and every community was meeting with their own people as well. And there were 3 things. And one was the Recreation Passport Program is where you renew your tabs for your license plates. And for an extra $13, you're supporting state parks. That gets you entry into every state park, forest, launch ramp, I believe. Anything you want to do for $13. And even if you don't go to a state park, why not support your state parks for $13 a year? And so when this whole program started, it started as an opt-in. So you would have to actually make the choice to do the passport. And so we had asked for new legislation to make it an opt-out program. And so you would have to say, no, I'm not going to support state parks. I'm not paying $13. So State Rep Julie Brixey I think she's already introduced legislation that will be voted on to make that happen, to make it an opt-out program. The second ask was to expedite the legislative approval process for the trust fund. So in April of each year, communities submit a grant application. It gets reviewed by the grant staff, The Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Board makes their selection the first week of December. Then it goes to the legislature for those funds to be authorized to the communities. And many times it is July, August, September before they're actually putting it on for a vote. And if those votes could happen January, February, that would be so much better, and you would probably gain a construction year because of it. And after our meetings, it's already on the docket to be voted on here soon.
Nice.
Yeah, and then there was like one more, and I know you're not probably that interested, but it is very interesting stuff. The Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund money comes from oil and gas drilling royalties on state lands. And it goes into the Natural Resources Trust Fund, but also to the State Parks Endowment Fund. And each of those funds have a cap. And the Natural Resources Trust Fund cap is at $500 million. It's at the cap already. They award grants to local communities from the interest that is earned on that throughout the year. Because the interest rates are so low, this year was like the lowest amount of grants provided to communities because of that cap. Right now, none of those oil and gas royalties are going to the trust fund. They're going to the Michigan State Park Endowment Fund. And once their cap is reached, then all the monies go back to the trust fund and back into local communities. So the ask was to out of the $9 billion budget surplus, to put $475 million into the State Parks Endowment Fund, because then that would make them whole, and then all the other monies would be able to go to the trust fund. So that's a big ask. Don't know if anything's going to happen there, but those are the three things that we talked about with our legislators, and it's exciting that two of the things are in process already.
Great.
So, sorry for the long explanation. Celebrate Meridian Festival.
Don't apologize, those are excellent points.
Okay,
I think
celebrate Meridian
some of us have been
Festival.
waiting a long time.
I know. Scheduled for June 24th at Marketplace on the Green, closing down Central Park Drive, food truck rally, kids' activities out here on the soccer field as usual, beer tent, live music on stage. This year, our main band is the Ben Daniels Band, and Ben is the son of actor Jeff Daniels from
Oh, neat, nice.
Chelsea. So we're very excited to have them coming to play. And then Garage Sale Band is another one, and they're a local favorite here. Okemos Dads, I think, in Briarwood. But they bring out a great crowd, and it's fun. And then the Historical Village is open. Nokomis is participating. Looking at maybe doing an informal car show on Central Park Drive. And we've been looking for like a hot air balloon to give like tethered rides. We have not had luck in securing that yet, but still looking for it. But anyway, lots of good things going on to celebrate Meridian. The Wednesday night concerts, our farmers market takes place on Wednesday evenings. And last year we started a concert series. Our schedule is full. We are totally booked for the whole year, starting June, July, August, September. And we do have a food truck or two there. You can bring your own beverages, lawn chair. It's just a fun, easy night to be outside listening to live music. There's also, the Township Board has started a task force to take a look at a community/senior center for our community. And there's been a few meetings. We've been trying to figure out like where it could be located, and then more importantly, how it could be funded. And there's a report the task force will provide to the Township Board in December to see if that's an avenue that the township would like to head down. I think it's very exciting. We lack meeting space. We lack a community center to run programs and bring the community together, and the senior center could be part of it and provide them a nice new facility. But anyway, we're still just in the works of looking at it. So don't want to get anybody excited. It's just a task force to do some investigation.
Interesting. Yeah.
The artificial ice rink that is up at Marketplace on the Green, it's been up all winter. There's skates there for anybody to use and just put back. But it will be coming down on March 20th in preparation for the farmers market to head outside again, because right now they're inside at Meridian Mall. And then I already talked about the AED machine at Hillbrook getting installed. That's it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's it.
It is amazing.
Any
That's it.
questions for Director Mazer?
I guess the thought is that Julie's always been quite engaged in Parks and Recreation issues, and so is Dan, and now we have Dan all to ourselves, that as time goes by, which won't be very long, coming up to the second round of the Spark Grant applications, that in talking with a couple local directors at that conference, you were so nice to always support us. I think this particular director of a big township in Oakland County, they didn't get a Spark grant either, and the thought is that their average income, and I know they use that figure, puts them at a disadvantage, and it's not going to change in the second round without some elbow twisting, arm twisting or some of folks like Julie and whoever represents those townships. They're going to score the same way. And the tie-in that this person actually indirectly wound up making to me was one of the awards was to Marcy Post, who's now the DPW director of Midland and has had, I don't know, were you there, Mark?
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't there.
Some real
I saw it.
personal tragedy with having a Down's child, and then the child passed on. And one of the things that she said has kept her going was City of Midland is one of the sponsors and hosts of a Miracle Ball Field, as is Independence Township. That kind of effort, whether Midland or Independence or Waterford or us, might fall somewhere different on that income line. That doesn't know any income level when a community takes that on, and it's just a very touching hearing her talk, which is probably on, I don't know, you probably Zoom it or
I
something.
think M-Parks had
Yeah.
a link to it, actually.
Yeah.
And I think what we want to do, I don't remember exactly what Independence want, what we want to do at the park is make those accessible walkways. Again, I don't think that's income related. And if their scoring system continues to, let's just guesstimate, they give everybody a 50 in need, then it's a pointless score. Everybody gets a 50 unless the couple that don't, you're there with 98% of the others, and you ratchet down that list, and you wind up with that income level being the deciding factor.
Right.
So-
Yeah, in that first round of Spark grants, they had 15 million to distribute, and they had 280 million in requests.
Sure, I got
That
that.
tells you the need that's out there. And if there could be more trust fund dollars available, that would be very helpful.
And one of the decision makers, though, is Clay Summers, which I think is super. And I hope we can keep Julie up to date on our application.
Absolutely.
This doesn't hurt Ron Olson and DNR Parks Division, by the way, which you're over there doing.
No.
Because he can't do it, but,
It was fully fund state parks. If they can make that allocation into the fund.
yeah, we'll come out ahead in the end.
Because
So-
even with the trust fund, the state parks apply for trust fund money. And they put in multiple applications, and communities are only allowed to put one
They
in.
get a lot
And
of them.
you didn't get to make that point to Julie. Anyway,
Oh, yes, I did.
good. So,
Yes, I did.
that's it. Let's go down kicking and screaming, because we or Independence or Waterford didn't get funded. And we had great projects, and I saw the list, didn't copy it or anything. But a lot of those communities, they aren't well-run for Parks and Rec. So let's go to Essexville, or let's go to Frankfurt. They're run by the DPW. I think we've got an advantage for our citizens and neighbors by having a professional department. So that's it.
Thanks, Greg. Any other questions for Director Mason? Okay, with that, we'll see if there are any additional public comments. Yes, Brad.
I think You have to have some comments from the public, and I'm in the public here, so.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you that I enjoyed the dialogue between the commissioners and Luann, and you all seem engaged in our parks and rec. That's great. We really appreciate that. A side note here, I serve on the board of the East Lansing Meridian Water and Sewer Authority, and surprisingly, I was aware of that AED being put on our well house over at Hillbrook Park. We have $20 million of projects going on, and the one that comes to light is an AED being connected to our well house. I don't know why. Maybe I thought, I wonder what it's going to cost us in power. Well, you know, our power bills are $70,000 to $80,000 a month, so I don't think it'll make a dent in it. Oh yeah, water runs on electricity. Pumps through the plant, out in the system, and so forth. My comment is really directed to the partnership that we have with the Parks Commission and Parks and Rec Department. I don't think it can get much better than it is. And Katie Adams, the Park Superintendent, has been great to work with for our maintenance needs and Luann's direction, of course. Brandy's helped us out with a lot of our office issues, and we appreciate that. And I noticed a sign going up. The posts are in out there, and I wondered what that was going to be. And message board, that's great. Is Samantha going to control that, or?
Yes.
And we've been working closely with her too. And I guess we just getting the word out to the public is so important, you know, as you discussed for your own park issues. So I just want my final comments to be thanks.
I've got one more thing. Are you still doing the call for artists to create a new logo for the Friends of
Yes.
Historic Meridian? Why don't you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, we brought on a new board member, Michael Moombaugh from Alabama, a grassroots historian, he calls himself. A guy in his 30s, a young family man. He's a Mr. Mom. He stays home with his 2 boys. This guy, he is really into history. And we have our 50th anniversary coming up next year for the Friends of Historic Meridian. 50 years we've been around. Whew. And we thought it'd be appropriate to get a new symbol, new emblem, new logo, whatever you want to call it. And Michael took control of this and drafted up a proposal to go out to local artists, and it's out and about. I don't know how much feedback he's gotten, but we're all in on this. And so you've seen it. And he's also, we're having our kickoff anniversary dinner, I believe next November. He's working on that with corporate sponsorships at the Red Haven Restaurant on Hagedorn Road. So stay tuned for that. You'll all be invited. But again, I appreciate the working relationship. Hope to see you back when we need some more money. We'll be soon.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you,
With
Brad.
that, there, Barney. You seem to end with that. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Keep plugging away.
Well, thank you for contributing to our meeting today.
And we're grateful for you too, Brad.
Okay, other matters or commissioners' comments? Commissioner Stevens?
I don't have any other comments.
Commissioner McDonald?
Nope, all set.
I'm good. Ms. Chair?
Surprisingly not, no.
Okay. Leanne, did you have anything else for us before we go into closed session?
I don't. I think though, since we aren't televised, I think we could, when we vote to go into closed session, that will end the televised portion of our meeting. And then when we come out of closed session, that's when we will adjourn the meeting. So they won't staying tuned for us to come out of closed.
Okay.
That kind of lets everybody else off the hook.
I guess based on that, we're not adjourning, but I did want to note that our next meeting, we will have no April meeting, just a quick reminder. So our next meeting will actually be May 9th at 4:30 at the Service Center.
So we do need a roll call vote to enter into closed session for the purpose of discussion of a possible acquisition.
Okay. Do we need a motion and vote?
You need a motion and a vote.
Okay.
Roll call vote.
I move with a 5-minute break. Oh, because I have to use them.
You can do that too.
So we'll vote first and then take the 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
All right, so we have a motion second.
Second.
Commissioner Stevens. All those in favor of moving into closed session
We have
for?
to go. Commissioner
Oh,
Stevens?
and- okay, thank you.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Lick?
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Antwerp?
And yes.
And Chair Nardo Ferris. We all a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. We're going to close session at 6:09.
6:09.